It's 2021. Super Nintendo World Theme Park has opened in Tokyo, and since we can't go there,
oh no!
Why not bring Mario everywhere? We're gonna take the Google Maps API and turn this into this.
Okay!
Ready? Let's go! To build this map theme, we're going to be using the new Google Cloud Console, the Maps JavaScript API, and of course some HTML and CSS. But before we get started, I wanted to thank the sponsor of today's video, Dev Projects by Code Mentor. If you're looking for coding ideas, check out Dev Projects. They're a free collection of real-world projects for web, mobile, and more. The coolest part about it is that if you join, you're actually joining a community of other developers. You can submit code solutions, share and receive feedback, and discuss projects with both peers and mentors on the platform. The custom Google map that I'm building in this video is also listed as a project there, linked down below. Alright, let's get started. The first thing we need to do is go to the Google Cloud Platform website at console.cloud.google.com. Up in the top navigation, click the Select a Project dropdown and select New Project. Give your project a name. I'm going to name mine Super Mario World Map. And you can leave the location to default and then hit Create to create the project. This might take a few minutes. Next, one quick tip is to go to the menu and pin the items that we're going to be using the most in this project. There's just so much in the Google Cloud Platform that you can easily get lost. So I recommend pinning APIs and services in the product section, and also Google Maps Platform in the other Google solutions way down at the bottom. That way you can open the platform menu and quickly access the APIs and Maps items whenever you need. Now let's create our custom map. In the menu, go to Google Maps Platform and select Map Management. You're going to want to click Create New Map ID up at the top. Give the map a name, and under Map Type, select JavaScript since we'll be using the Maps JavaScript API. For JavaScript options, you can select either raster or vector. Raster is a default type that uses image tiles, and vector is a newer type that uses WebGL and vector tiles. Not all browsers and mobile devices support WebGL, so I'd stick with raster for now. Create your map and note the new map ID as you'll need it later. Now that the map is created, we're going to create our custom style for the map. In the Google Maps Platform menu, select Map Styles and click Create New Map Style. Under Create Your Own Style, make sure Google Map is selected and then click Save at the bottom. In the pop-up window, give your map style a name and click Submit to save. Now here's where the fun begins. Click Customize Style and you'll see the default map open with all the feature types that you can customize. Since I want my map located around the Super Nintendo World theme park, I can type in the park name and go there. Before styling the map, we need to get the colors of the Mario map. So I found an image of the map online and then opened it in an image editing program for Windows called OrphanView. But you can use any program that has a color picker like Photoshop. So I took the colors of the water, the ground, and the roads for my map. You'll need to get the colors in HSL or RGB for the Google Map customization. Now that we have our colors, we can start adding them to our map styles. Under the feature type section, you can choose different features and customize them. So let's start by making the landscape features bright green. Click on Landscape, and under the element type section, click on Fill, then Color. This will pop up a color picker. I'm on Windows, so this may look different for Macs. First off, I'm going to reuse this bright green color, so I'm going to save it to the custom colors. Click on the first custom color square to select it, and you'll notice that it'll immediately make all the landscape black on the map. This is because that's the default color. So let's now add in the RGB values for bright green. Once that's done, click Add to Custom Colors, and that'll save the bright green color so we can use it later.
Go green!
Click OK to save, and now the landscape features have been set to bright green. Next up, let's make that water the blue color. So in the feature type section, scroll down to the bottom and select Water. Do the same thing we did before, clicking on Fill and then Color. We're going to save this as a custom color as well in case we need this in the future. So click on that second custom color square, add in the RGB values for the blue color, and then click Add to Custom Colors to save it, and then select OK to save. Alright, we're getting the map looking a little bit more Mario with every step. Next up, let's make all the roads that light beige color. So in feature type, select Road, Fill, and Color. Select the third custom color square and enter in the RGB values for that light beige color. And when that's done, click Add to Custom Colors and click OK to save. Now let's set Points of Interest to be the darker green color. Again, we're going to select the fill color, but let's zoom out the map a little bit so that we can see what we're affecting. We're going to create a new custom color and setting that to dark green. Lastly, let's set the transit fill colors to the same beige as the road colors. You can also choose to show or hide different map features. I don't really want to show most of the default map pins for businesses and other places to make it seem a little bit more like Mario World. So let's hide most of the items under points of interest. Click on Attraction, and then under Element Type select All, and under the Stylers change the visibility to Off. I'm going to be doing this for most of the other types under points of interest, but obviously you can choose your own preferences. Once all the customizations are done, make sure to hit Save up at the top right and Publish. Alright, the map is looking pretty good. Now, before we can add it to our website, we do need to get a couple of things: the map ID for the initial map we created at the beginning, and our API key. We also need to apply all the map styles we just made to our map so that it'll load our styles in the website. So let's do that first. In the left sidebar menu, click Map Management and select the Super Mario World map. Then, under the map style associated with this map ID, click the dropdown and select the Super Mario World theme. This will apply all the style customizations to this map. We'll also need the map ID for our website, so make sure to copy and paste that somewhere, or just leave the tab open for later on. Now, let's get that API key. First off, we want to enable the Google Maps JavaScript API. Click APIs in the left sidebar and select Maps JavaScript API. Click that Enable button, and this might take several seconds to finish. So once it's done, it's going to load a dashboard to show your API usage. Don't worry if you get a message saying error occurred retrieving client ID. Next up, in the blue Google Cloud Platform top nav, click the hamburger menu and select APIs and Services, and then Credentials. Click the Create Credentials link up at the top, and then API key to generate your API key. Now once the key is generated, it's going to display on your screen and you can copy it for later. And one very important note: if you're going to use your API key in a live production website, you must restrict it. Otherwise, anyone can snag your API key from the website source code and use it for their own purposes. And it could also incur billing if you've added a credit card to your Google Cloud Platform account. So to restrict your key, click on the Restrict Key link. Type in a name for your API key if it doesn't have one yet. I'm going to name mine Super Mario World Google Map Key. Then, under Application Restrictions, select HTTP refers, then add a new item, and then fill in the allowed domain. And if you want to limit which APIs your API key can use, under API Restrictions, select Restrict Key, and then in the dropdown, select Maps JavaScript API. Hit Save when you're done, and you should be good. Next up, we're going to finally build our website and load our map in it using the Google Maps JavaScript API, and just a little bit of CSS. So open up the project folder in your favorite code editor. I'm using VS Code with a custom theme that I made called Coder Dark. If you like my theme, you can install it from the extensions menu in VS Code or use the link down below in the description. So in our project, we have an index.html file, a script.js file, and a style.css file. In our index.html file, we're going to use the exclamation point emit shortcut to automatically add boilerplate HTML. Then we'll add in a title for the page. I'm naming mine Super Mario World Google Map, but obviously you can name yours whatever you want. And we also want to add a link to load our style.css file, and a script tag to load our JavaScript file. Then in our style.css file, let's add in some boilerplate CSS. So I'm setting box sizing border box in the HTML selector so that padding won't affect the final width or height of elements. And I'm making the font size 100% for better accessibility. Then I'm using the wildcard to select all elements as well as all pseudo elements, both before and after, and having them inherit that box sizing property. Then for the body tag, I'm just going to set it to have no margin or padding. Now let's load this website in our local server. I'm using the VS Code Live Server extension, so when I click the Go Live link at the bottom of VS Code, it's going to launch the site in our browser. It's blank for now since we haven't added anything to the HTML yet. To load the map in your code, we need to get a code snippet from the Google Maps API documentation. So in your favorite search engine, I use DuckDuckGo, we're going to search for Google Maps JavaScript API and then load their documentation. So if you scroll down the sidebar menu, click on Styling Your Map, and then click on Cloud-Based Tooling since that's the type of map style that we created. And if you scroll down to the code example, we're going to copy that script tag. Now let's paste it into our index.html file after our script.js tag. The order is important as we're using a callback function in the API URL that we're going to create in our script.js file. Now, in the script tag, we need to replace the API key and map ID strings with their actual values. If you don't have these handy, you can get them from the Google Cloud Platform. Go to console.cloud.google.com and just make sure you're logged into the correct account. Then once it loads, open the top menu and under APIs and Services, click on Credentials. Under the API Keys section, find the right key and click to copy it. Now going back to VS Code, paste that key in the script URL to replace API key. Now let's get that map ID. Going back to the Google Cloud Platform site, in the top nav, navigate to Google Maps Platform and Map Management. Then under Map IDs, click to open the map that we created and copy that map ID over. Then back in VS Code, paste it into the script URL to replace map ID and then save. Alright, now let's get that map working. First, let's add a bit of text to the page. I'm going to add an H1 tag just so we have something other than the map itself to make sure the page is loading. Let's go to Super Mario World.
Okie dokie.
We also need to add a div tag to the page that's going to be loading the Google map. I'm going to create a div with an ID of map. Okay, so that's pretty much all the markup we need to add. Now we're going to start writing JavaScript to load the map itself. Remember that we're using a callback function called initmap in the script URL. This is really helpful because it'll only run the JavaScript that we're going to write once the API has finished loading. Otherwise, it would run our JavaScript before the map exists and then things wouldn't work. So let's go into our script.js file and load the map. The first thing we need to do is create the initmap function. Now in this function, we're going to create the Google map. So going back to the styling your map documentation, going under to where we copied that script tag, we can just copy that code snippet there for loading a Google Map object. Paste that code in the initmap function and then fill in the map ID. What this Google Maps object does is load a Google map, centering around the latitude and longitude listed, setting the zoom level, and loading a custom map via the map ID. So let's save it and see how it looks. Okay, so the website itself looks blank, but if we check out the inspector, we can see that the map div now has markup generated by the Maps API. To get the map to display properly, we need to go back into our CSS file and give the map div an explicit height setting. I'm going to say 60 VH, or viewport height units. Now the map is loading, but we're getting this pop-up window and a console error message telling us that we need to enable billing in our Google Cloud project. If you're just using this in a development environment, you can just exit out of the pop-up and not worry about it. But if the map is going to be used on a live site, you will have to add a credit card to the Google Cloud Platform under the billing section. But before we get more into the map, let's spruce up the look of this website a little bit. So I'm going to get an 8-bit looking font from Google Fonts, copy over the link tag, and then I'm going to paste it into the head of our index.html before our style.css file. We also need to copy the font family name and set it as a font on the H1 tag. I also want to make the body background color black and default text color to white. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I think I'm also going to center the H1 tag and make the font size a little bit smaller, maybe 2 rems. Alright, that looks pretty good. Maybe set a little bit of padding on the ends as well. Okay, let's start tweaking the map now. There are a couple of things that I want to change for our Mario map. The first thing is I want to set the center of the map to be where the actual Super Nintendo World theme park is in Tokyo. To get the location in Google Maps, I've loaded the Super Nintendo World Park. If you right-click on the map pin, or anywhere on the map, I can copy the latitude and longitude. Then back in our script.js file, I can paste it in, just as a comment for now, and then I can adjust the lat and long values in our Google Maps object to match that location. Now when we look at the map, we can see that it is centered around Japan. We are pretty zoomed out right now, so let's go back and adjust the zoom level. The zoom range for Google Maps goes from around 0 for super zoomed out to around 22 for super zoomed in. I'm going to set this map to be 18 to show most of the Universal Studios Japan Park in our map. Okay, and now we can see that the zoom level of our Mario map matches pretty much what we have in the original Google map. So this is what we're going to be working with in our map. The next step in Marioifying the map is adding some custom map markers. We're going to be adding markers to our map, and instead of the default Google Map pin, we're going to use these cool SVGs. You might recognize these images from the Super Mario World game. So let's start by adding one default map marker. Back in the Google Maps documentation, in the Markers section, we're going to take this code snippet to create a single marker object. So in the marker, we need to set the latitude and longitude, set the map object that we are adding to the marker to, and have an optional title. So copying that over to our JavaScript. Let's also go into the Google Map to pick a random location in the park to give the latitude and longitude values for our marker. We're going to paste those values to the marker position. And let's check out our map. Okay, so the marker has been added to the map. Now let's work on loading one of those custom images. The Google Maps documentation is pretty comprehensive, and they have some pretty handy examples in the samples section. So in this example, it's loading a PNG image for the map marker. If we look at the JavaScript code down below, we can see that it's using an icon property set to the image URL. However, since we're using an SVG image for our markers, we need to add some additional fields for that icon property. To find out what those are, we can go into the reference section and look at marker objects. It tells us that the different properties that we can use for our icon. So we're going to be using the URL property to set the image URL, and then we're also going to be using the scaled size property to control the final size of the SVG. Without this, the SVG image won't show up at all on the map. Now going back into our marker code, we're going to add in the icon property to the marker. And in the icon, we're going to set the URL property to the SVG image, and we're also going to use the scaled size property. Now to figure out what to set scaled size to, we can go back to the reference and click on that size type. So this tells us that it's going to take a Google Maps size class with two parameters, width and height separated by a comma. So back in the code, let's create a new Google Maps size object and set it to 38 pixels wide and 31 pixels tall. I'm also going to set the title of the marker to Yoshi's house, making sure to escape the apostrophe with a backslash. So let's save that and check out our map. Alright, now you can see that it's loading the Yoshi's house image. Alright, so I decided to add my credit card to the billing account just to get rid of that annoying pop-up window. So now the map is loading some of the default controls, which I honestly don't really want to show up. I can get rid of them by manually turning them to false in the Google Maps object. Okay, so now we have our clean looking map. Let's add a couple more fun things to our marker. So one thing we can do is we can add a drop animation so that when the map loads, you see the markers drop onto the map. We can do this by adding the animation property to the marker and setting it to google.maps.animation.drop. So if we copy that over, we can add this to our marker. Now when we save and reload the map, we're going to see that drop animation. And there we go. You can also create custom pop-ups called info windows that open when you click on the marker. Let's make an info window that displays the name of the location. So if we look at the docs and scroll down to that code example, we can see that we need to create a new info window object and set its content to a string. Then we need to add an event listener so that when you click on the marker, it'll open the info window. So let's take that info window code and copy it over into our JavaScript file. And I'm going to set the string to, say, Yoshi's house again. And now let's take that event listener code and add it in as well. Now, there's one more thing we need to do to make this work. We need to create the Google Maps marker as a constant named marker. That way we can attach the event listener to the marker so that it'll load in the info window. Okay, so let's save that. And now when we reload the map, let's see if it works. Okay, so clicking on the Yoshi's house marker, the info window appears, but it looks blank. And this is, I believe, because I set the color to white in the CSS previously. So fortunately, we can style the info window. So I'm going to copy that class for the generated marker and go into our style.css file, add a selector for it, and then set the color to black. All right, so let's reload our site to make sure. So now when we click on the marker, the info window pops up and displays Yoshi's house. Okay, it looks like I have a little typo there. I forgot to add the apostrophe, so let's go back and fix that. All right, cool. So now we've added a custom map marker to our map, but we do have a lot of other marker images, so we need to add multiple markers to the map, each with their own location. So if we check out the docs, we can look at this example map that has multiple custom markers. Going down to the code example, it looks like they are storing the location data for each marker in an array called beaches. Then in the setMarkers function, it's setting the custom marker image, and at the bottom there is a for loop that creates the marker object for each location in the beaches array. So we can do a similar approach with our map. First off, let's create the array for the markers. Under the map object, let's make a new array called markers. Yes, very creative, I know. And in that array, we want to store the name, latitude and longitude, image URL, and scaled size, width, and height for each marker image. Now let's create the first marker for Yoshi's house. I'm going to copy and paste the marker data that I'd previously set, and I'm just going to move it into the array. This is going to allow us to put the Google Maps marker creation inside the for loop and then running it through all the items in the array. Okay, so we've added the name, latitude and longitude, image URL, and the scaled size, width, and height. Now let's create that for loop and have it load the marker based on the array. I know there's just that one item in it for now, but once it works, we're going to add in all the other marker data. So for let I equal 0, I less than markers.length, and then I increment. And we're going to create a constant called cur marker, which will be the current marker in the array. Now let's move the marker, info window, and event listener code into the for loop. And we're going to replace what we had hard-coded for Yoshi's house with the array data. So the name is the first field, so cur marker 0. Then the image URL is going to be cur marker 3. So the latitude is going to be cur marker 1. And then longitude is going to be cur marker 2. And then scaled size is going to be cur marker 4 and 5. Then we'll do the same thing for the info window and replace it with what we set the title to, which is cur marker 0. Alright, and the add event listener should be good, so we will save that and check out our map and see if it worked. Alright, the marker loaded, which is great, and looks like the info window is also loading correctly. Now we can add the other marker data to the array. I don't want to bore you with repeating steps 7 different times, but basically I chose different locations on the map for each marker and then set them to have the correct image and name. And checking out the final map, we can see that it has indeed been Mario-fied. If you want to check out my source code for this project or try this challenge out for yourself, you can find it on Dev Projects by Code Mentor, linked down below in the description. Also, if you noticed, I tried out a new, more edited format for this video tutorial. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of it and if you like this format or my live coding format more. And as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.